This has been a secret project we've been working on for a long time.
Hey, wash the windows.
Julie, welcome back to the program. Boy, gotta tell you, I don't know, between you and General Flynn and Mike Davis, who is the rightist on all of this, but all of you must be riding very high because your work has aged like fine wine.
Well, Benny, I mean, I take a back seat to people like Molly Hemingway and Sean Davis and Chuck Ross and others who really, helped blow the lid off of Russiagate early on. I did cover it as well. But I think what we're talking about, Benny, in terms of what is reported a grand conspiracy investigation that dates back to now, well, we'll talk about these documents that Tulsi Gabbard released. What I wrote about in 2022 is how those same Russiagate perpetrators, Avril Haines, Susan Rice, and Lisa Monaco, then went on to work at the highest levels in Joe Biden's presidency. Avril Haines, who is all three of them were at that December 9th, 2016 meeting at the White House that the president convened and that we just learned about on Friday. So all three of them, Avril Haines went on to be really Tulsi Gabbard's predecessor, Director of National Intelligence. Susan Rice was Domestic Policy Advisor. And Lisa Monaco, Deputy Attorney General, running the Department of Justice, basically with Merrick Garland as a figurehead. So I'm working on a piece on Lisa Monaco right now. Hopefully I'll be able to come on later in the week and talk about it. But this is the common thread between Russiagate all the way through the Biden presidency up until the end of 2024, when they were still trying to hang on to those two criminal indictments against the president and somehow manage to figure out a way to put him in jail throughout 2024.
So I want to just take a quick step back, and we were bothered by this question right off the top of the show, but you're the perfect person to ask it since you've been covering this so closely. John Durham, what the hell? Like, what happened with all of this evidence over the last 10 years? It's clearly been sitting there in a file drawer somewhere. It could have been found, seems like quite easily, because it's a very thorough report. You said, of course, Lisa Monaco, was there, not Lisa Monaco, sorry, Avril Haines was there in charge at the Director of National Intelligence. She clearly had all this evidence, right? Like, you understand the cover up there. What the hell went on with John Durham?
I mean, it's hard to say. And I think that that's something that Congress really needs to look into, as they're, this multi-hydra headed scandal, unprecedented scandal in American history. Where do you start, or where do you continue what has already been underway? But certainly John Durham's report and other reports related to the scandal, where were these documents that Tulsi Gabbard released? Where were these email exchanges? Why did we not even know about this December 9th meeting until Friday? In fact, I went to my top source, Lee Smith, on Friday, who has covered this, as you know, in 3 books, produced a movie about it. No one knows this, I think, better than Lee. And I said, did we know about this December 9th meeting before? And I covered it as well, not as in depth. And he said no. So that meeting of those Russiagate perpetrators, including President Obama, the Obama sisters, John Brennan, et cetera, Jim Comey. How did John Durham not know about that? So I think that is something that we need to find out. But moving forward, Benny, then what does the Department of Justice do now?
Yes.
You had Tulsi Gabbard, as you know, and you've already talked about, calling this a treasonous conspiracy. You have CIA Director John Ratcliffe, and I know there are questions as to how he did not get his hands on these documents during the first Trump presidency. Nonetheless, sending criminal referral about John Brennan and Jim Comey related to that bogus intelligence community assessment that was the product of that December 9th meeting. So, the DOJ, FBI, and Congress have a lot on their hands, but people want accountability. And it's hard to see at this point, Benny, where criminal charges are not brought against a few, if not many, of these Russiagate perpetrators.
We've gotten some very wildly interesting answers and divergent answers. Mike Davis says conspiracy against rights. David Schoen is saying that, you know, there are a slew of things that you could charge them with, but he's a civil rights lawyer and he took the civil rights tact that you're depriving the people, obviously, of their vote. And then General Flynn says, you know, you put him in a military gulag and charge him with treason, right? And that's very General Flynn. Given the fact that you've seen maybe all of those charges brought against President Trump by these people, would you advise? What would you advise here as far as carving up this whale?
So I'm also working on a piece about this, Betty. I've got like 6 different articles working on, and you can imagine if you want to make them thorough, though, it takes some time. And I've actually been working on a seditious conspiracy article and how the DOJ might be able to apply. Now, keep in mind, this is a post-Civil War statute that the Biden DOJ dusted off to use against 24 J6ers, January 6 defendants, who were members or alleged members of the Oath Keepers and the Proud Boys. Now, this statute, seditious conspiracy, traditionally has only been used against foreign terrorists. For example, the perpetrators of the 1993 World Trade Center bombing. The DOJ brought seditious conspiracy charges against those individuals. Fine. But the DOJ watered that down, egregiously watered it down, to bring this, and it is comparable to treason, against 24 J6 defendants, some of whom were not even in Washington, D.C., some of whom didn't even go inside the Capitol. Only one had some sort of weapon, I think, you know, a pocket knife or something. And so if you can use that against people who committed no violence, who had no plan to overthrow the government, and using how the DOJ, the Biden DOJ, brought those charges, what they put in their indictments, and what the jury instructions were in all of those trials. There were 3 Oath Keeper trials, 1 Proud Boy trial. The jury instructions, it's hard to see how this Trump DOJ could not now pick that up where the Biden DOJ left off and use seditious conspiracy and draw this, you know, pull this thread from the Obama White House all the way through to the Biden regime, and attempting to do the very same thing, which is to sabotage the president and, you know, and set him up, if he did win, again, another illegitimate presidency. And that's what they were trying to create.
And they got convictions on those charges, Julie.
They did.
For seditious conspiracy. So the question, of course, in a moment like that is, did they have the power to overthrow the U.S. government? And of course, that's laughably no. Yet these people did have the power to overthrow the government. They used the most powerful intelligence community resources known to man, and they weaponized them against Donald Trump. So it seems like that charge might stick, Julie.
I think that it probably has. Now, Mike Davis, of course, I always defer to him as well. So conspiracy against rights is probably one of the options on the table. But I know, speaking for a lot of J6ers, they would love to see seditious conspiracy thrown back. And this was also, I believe, if Donald Trump had lost the election, that Jack Smith would have brought seditious conspiracy charges in a superseding indictment against the president had he lost. I think that they were still holding that in their back pocket. I think you and I even talked about that in 2023 and 24, what they would do if Trump lost. So there is a little caveat in there in the seditious conspiracy by force. But again, and I'll explain this in my piece and come back on and explain it even further. They said physical force wasn't necessary, that any sort of force, that they planned to use force. Well, it doesn't have to be physical force. I mean, when you have the full force of the intelligence community, the White House, the Oval Office, the DOJ, the FBI, CIA, every single major, powerful, unaccountable government agency coming down on your head, how can you say that's by force? That's way worse than someone opening a door with Capitol Police standing right there, going into a government building on a Wednesday afternoon. So anyway, I'll be doing, I'm working on a deep dive there, but I do think that that should be one of the statutes on the table for the Trump DOJ to consider.
Right here, Julie, is Stephen Miller, who is a friend of the show, hasn't been on in a while. He's been a bit busy. But Stephen Miller calling it a seditious conspiracy. And he's a very wise legal mind and the architect, of course, of so much of what's going on at the DOJ and Homeland Security and law enforcement in America. So he's using that terminology. Mm-hmm. He's preferring, he's leading with seditious conspiracy is what it seems like Stephen Miller's leading with.
Yes. Well, I think, of course, he is correct. And it does. And if he's saying it, sort of signals to me and others that that might be the statute that they are pursuing. And the great thing is that they've got recent history of how the Department of Justice and judges signed off on that. So you had 2 judges in Washington, D.C. who allowed that charge to go forward against J6ers. Trump appointee Tim Kelly, Obama appointee Amit Mehta. They were the ones who refused to dismiss that charge against J6ers, including, of course, nonviolent ones who were not in the Capitol that day, some who didn't even go inside the building. Enrique Tarrio was in a Baltimore hotel on January 6th, sentenced to 22 years in prison on a seditious conspiracy conviction. So, and the government, the Biden DOJ, again, comparing this to treason, adding terror enhancements to those sentences so they could throw people like Enrique Tarrio in jail for, most of his life. Now, of course, they're all released now because the president commuted all of their sentences. Some of them still have not been pardoned on the seditious conspiracy conviction. However, the Biden DOJ left a whole roadmap. So did those 2 judges. So the Trump DOJ can consider how to apply that to some of these key perpetrators.
Seems like there's quite a bit of a roadmap that's being uncovered. Julie, would you mind if we did some breaking news that's right in your wheelhouse?
We do this all the time, Benny.
From Senator Grassley. Yeah, that's right. Wow, let's do a breaking news thing. I mean, just in case. Yeah, here we go. Breaking news. Let's go. Senator Chuck Grassley, head of the Judiciary, says newly declassified documents show DOJ Inspector General concluded that Comey's run FBI failed to conduct a thorough and complete investigation into the Clinton email scandal. Well, would you look at that, Julie? His team ate up the Steele dossier lies and chased after Russian collusion hoax, but took kid gloves against Hillary Clinton. Now, David Schoen and Mike Davis were both on here saying a lot of this connects back to Hillary Clinton's illegal server. And so much of this was intended to cover all of that up. Your take, right, Julie?
I mean, I think that this is another important aspect. Going back to the timeline of July. So remember that press conference that Jim Comey gave, I believe it was July 5th of 2016, where he admitted that she had classified documents on her email server, but that he said no, what did he say? No prosecutor would pursue charges against her, something along those lines.
No reasonable prosecutor.
Thank you. All right. Mm-hmm. So you're younger than I am. You can remember 9 years ago. I can't.
I couldn't remember John Durham's name earlier in the show. So I was like,
all right, good. I feel better. But then immediately after that, remember how WikiLeaks, the release of the emails off the DNC server. And that demonstrated how the DNC was helping Hillary Clinton over Bernie Sanders. That resulted in the ouster of Debbie Wasserman Schultz as the DNC head. So the Democratic Party was really in disarray after this. And Hillary Clinton still under fire from media and others and being investigated, still under fire for this. So they needed something, right? So then the end of July 2016, Crossfire Hurricane opens for Trump aides, including General Flynn. So this was also a diversion away from that. So this is just another angle of things that we are going to be finding out. Now, what could possibly happen with that? I don't know. We're running up, this is 9 years ago. Mm-hmm. So it's going to be tougher to prosecute someone like Jim Comey because there's no common thread. He wasn't in the Biden administration, the Biden regime, where he could continue dirty work against President Trump and his allies. That's not the case with Lisa Monaco, Avril Haines, Susan Rice, and others. So this will be interesting to see, but I don't really know what kind of action can be taken after that.
Mike said that it was because the conspiracy is ongoing, it never ended, and the statute of limitation ends when the conspiracy ends. And they've never admitted this, and they've never been punished for it. So that's what Mike says. Anyway, we'll leave it to smarter minds, but this is one that I really got to ask. And something that, of course, really popped off in my timeline. According to these files, there's no credible evidence that Russia ever hacked the DNC.
No.
Julie, you were just talking about it. So, well, what does that lead us to? What assumptions then must we take? Because the official line has been that the DNC was hacked by Russia, and then they manipulated all the emails in order to insert creepy stuff in there, spirit cooking dinners and so on, right? None of it's real. It's all fake. Don't even talk about it, right? But it seems like the intelligence community is saying, no. Russia never hacked the DNC, so we're left to simply assume that, what, Julie?
Well, that's a big question. There's some speculation as to how those emails were obtained and released. But I will say we've known plenty of reporting on this, including myself. Sean Henry, who is the CEO of CrowdStrike, who was hired by Fusion GPS, I believe, or the DNC to look into that hack. So then they came out with this report. Yes, it does have fingerprints of Russian intelligence. I think one of them was Guccifer. That was the name, Guccifer 2.0. He's tied to the GRU, the Russian military. And so he's the one who got it. But then Sean Henry later, when he had to give testimony to Congress, admitted that they never even saw the devices. They never saw the email server. They had no hard copies of anything. So CrowdStrike also complicit in this lie that the Russians hacked the DNC email system. So this just confirms it once again. So who did? So how did the emails, who obtained them? How were they released? And this represents another cover-up of this massive scandal.
I mean, you simply left to assume that all of it's been a lie and that they're 100% authentic. And I think most people in this audience already believe that. But then if that's the case, then there's a lot of questions that are going to be asked of Hillary Clinton. Now, there's reports that Hillary Clinton and her team were aggressively pushing Barack Obama to launch Russiagate. We'll wait to see those documents. Perhaps that's what Tulsi Gabbard is telling us is going to be dropping soon. We're not sure. But Tulsi Gabbard is saying not only are there major whistleblowers from inside the IC, but also that there's a lot more to come. And, at what point do you begin to pull the threads back to Hillary Clinton? Could she potentially be culpable in any of this?
I doubt it. I mean, let's cut to the chase. No one's going to indict Hillary Clinton. No one's going to indict Barack Obama. So we can, I think, disabuse ourselves of that vision or that.
Really? You don't think Obama either?
No. And of course, you've got the issue with Barack Obama. What would you charge him with? We have the immunity ruling from the Supreme Court really a year ago that carves out only specific instances where a president in office could be held criminally liable. And I'm sure that Barack Obama, if anything came down, would be smart enough and his lawyers would figure that out. So no, but look, I really want to see the henchmen like Lisa Monaco. And I know I keep going back to her, but look, she also ran the Biden DOJ. So she was the one that really ran the first two investigations into the president for classified documents and for January 6th. She, I'm sure, worked with special counsel Jack Smith, was involved in his appointment, people from the DOJ leaving the Department of Justice, going to the special counsel's office. Chuck Grassley just last week, I believe, the last several days, releasing emails showing how Tom Wyndham, another prosecutor who went to the DC U.S. Attorney's Office, which was in constant contact with the DOJ, I'm told, specifically Lisa Monaco's office, how he was pushing top down the FBI to open this January 6th investigation into the president, which of course they did. So I'm looking for a lot more records related to that as well. And so those are the people who I think are the most likely to be held responsible, criminally liable, and the ones who should be.
You posted about, in the final question here, you posted about the whistleblowers that Tulsi Gabbard is talking about. Right now, you've done a ton of reporting, obviously, on the intel community. What do you think could potentially be unveiled? Where do you think this is going to go next, Julie, given your deep and rich experience in these kind of conspiracies and knowledge of some of the key players? What do you think the whistleblowers will say? What do you think is going to happen next?
Well, there is a whistleblower cited in the documents that Tulsi Gabbard released on Friday. So I would assume more will step forward, and even perhaps whistleblowers who during the Trump presidency, because of course he took office in late January 2017, who were still fighting the deep state intelligence types. And remember even the Ukrainian gate, the quid pro quo, the phone call to Zelensky to look into the Biden family corruption, which we now know exists as well. So there could be some sort of nexus to that also. So because everything is so connected and because there's so many bad actors and still are in the federal government, even more so during Trump's first term, I would assume that you'll have whistleblowers discussing not just this, but other intended sabotage operations against the sitting president during his first term.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to find out about what is happening now, you can go back and read Julie Kelly's Substack. Here's the article, by the way, that I would point you to. The DOJ.
Oh, that's a DOJ one. That's an
no. The
whistleblower.
Yaya sisters,
that's a
please.
fake. That's a fake whistleblower.
There we go. All right. Obama era sisters circle. They circle Trump. Yes, it's always been the same one. That's Samantha Power, man. Creepy little video of her in Hungary, head of USAID. It's amazing. She was the head of USAID, and she's like, I can't wait to engage with partners here in Hungary to try and topple the governments here. It's like, oh, God, it's so dirty. They're so filthy. And Julie Kelly's been calling them out for years. So please subscribe to her Substack. And then subscribe to Julie Kelly here, who is just a few short of 1 million subs on X. Ladies and gentlemen, the people who are fighting for us, fight with them. Thank you, Julie.
Thanks, Ben.